Alright guys, real quick, we're just going to go over Study Guide 2, System of Equations. This is part 2, it's just the last 4 problems. So, the first 2 are going to be elimination that are not lined up. So in 19 and 20, I must line up the x's, y's, equal signs, and the numbers. Alright? 21 through 22, I must graph it with 2 XY charts. Everybody is using substitution or elimination for 21 and 22, and you can use it to check your work, but you still have to have 2 lines that are graphed. Alright, so number 19, remember, I want to have my x's, then my y's, then my equal sign, then my numbers. So I want to have the x's, then the y's, then the number equal sign, then the numbers. So like, look, this negative 2x is on the wrong side. This negative 6x, oh, I messed up, I wrote it wrong. It's negative 2y here, that's a y. The y and the x are on the wrong side. I want to move them over. So to move them over, I have to add 2y to both sides to move the negative 2y over. I have to add 6x to both sides to move the 6x over. So I'm going to write the positive 6x first, plus 2y. And look, this 10's already on the right side, so it's going to stay on the right side. Now in the bottom equation, this negative 22 it's in the right spot. The equal sign's in the right spot. I want this 14 to leave, so I want 14 to be on the other side. So I'm going to minus 14 from both sides. That's going to move the 14 from the left to the right. I want to move the x over, so I have to minus 18x from both sides. That's going to move the x from the right to the left. Now, it looks like something we've done before. So now, I can do step 2. Right? So step 2 says I'm going to multiply everything on top by 3 because I want the x's to cancel out. So I looked at the x's, I said, look, I can just multiply everything by 3. I'm going to get positive 18x plus 6y equals 30. The bottom's going to stay the same. It's going to become negative 18x minus 22y equals negative 14. And I know I'm right because, look, the x's cancel. So now I'm on to step 3. I'm going to add vertically. I'm going to get negative 16y equals 16. I divide both sides by negative 16. I get y equals negative 1. Now, it doesn't matter which one you pick, the top or the bottom, to put in negative 1. So I'm going to pick the bottom. I'm going to say 14 minus 22 instead of y and put negative 1 equals 18x. I'm going to get 14 plus 22 equals 18x. So I get 36 equals 18x. I divide both sides by 18. I get x equals 2. I have an x. I have a y. I'm going to write it as an ordered pair, 2, negative 1, with parentheses. And that's it for 19. Alright, so number 20, so once again, I have to do step 1. The x's are fine. The x's are in the right spot. I want this 6 to move over here, so I'm going to minus 6 from both sides. I lied to you guys. I just lied. The x's are fine in the top equation. The y's are fine. The numbers are fine in the top equation. So the top equation is good. It's the bottom equation. I want this 10 to move to the right side, so I'm going to minus 10 from both sides. I want the y to move to the left side, so I'm going to minus y from both sides. So the bottom is going to become minus 5x minus y equals negative 10. And the top's going to stay the same because it was already lined up correctly. Now, I'm on step 2. I have to make something cancel. I'm going to make the y's cancel because I can just multiply everything by 7 on the bottom. If you multiply the top by 5 and the bottom by negative 3, that would work as well. But I think this is a little bit easier. So the top is going to stay the same, negative 3x plus 7y equals 6. The bottom is going to become negative 35x minus 7y equals negative 70. I end up with minus 38x equals negative 64, which that's okay, that's going to be messy. Now I'm going to solve it. So I had negative 38x equals negative 64. I divide both sides by negative 38. I get x equals, you can write positive 32 over 19. Maybe you don't like that. Maybe you like x equals 1 and 13/19. So that either one of those are okay, or maybe you put 1.68. Any of those three are okay. Now I'm going to plug in 32 over 19 just because it's easier for me to plug into the top equation. So I'm going to say negative 5. Instead of x, I'm going to put 32 over 19 plus 10 equals y. I'm going to end up with y equals hold on. So x is equal to 32 over 19. I picked that. I'm going to plug it into the original top equation. I'm going to multiply negative 5 times 32 and 19th. I end up with 1 and 11/10. Maybe you just plugged it into a decimal and you got 1.6. That's fine. So my order pair is going to be 1 and 13/10. Or 19th, I mean. I don't know why I put tenths here. 19th. So, and then 1 and 11/19. You don't like that, you could put 1.68, 1.6. Either one of those are okay. And that's it for 20. Alright, so number 21, I'm going to make two XY charts. So I'm making an XY chart for the top line. I'm going to make an XY chart for the bottom line. Remember, you get to pick whatever you want for X in the top line. I'm going to pick negative 1, 0, and 1. So I take negative 1, I plug it in for X right there. I'm going to say y equals negative 1 plus 2. So y equals 1. I do the same thing for 0. I get 2. I plug in 1. Y equals 1 plus 2. I get 3. So y equals 3. So my first line is 0, 2, put a dot. Negative 1, 1, put a dot. 1, 3, put a dot. Pretend that's a straight line. And that's it. Now the second line is actually easier because it's telling me no matter what, I can't pick anything but negative 3 for x. If there's only one letter, that just tells you that letter has to be that. The good news is it doesn't say anything about y, so I get to pick whatever I want, which basically means it's an up and down line through negative 3. Pretend that's a straight line. And that's where they intersect. So your solution is going to be negative 3, negative 1. If you found it any other way, you still have to graph it. You still have to have two lines that graph. You must have two lines, or you didn't solve it by graphing. So that's it for 21. Alright, number 22, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to have two XY charts. So the black one is going to be for the top line. I'm going to pick negative 1, 0, 1 for x, which I plug it in right there. Say y equals negative 3. Instead of x, I'm going to put negative 1 plus 4. Negative times a negative is positive, so I get 3 plus 4, which is 7. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put 0 plus 4. So y equals 4. Now I already think 1's going to show up, so if 1 doesn't show up here, I'm going to rethink everything I did. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3 plus 4. So y does equal 1. So I go left 1 up to 7, put a dot. 0, 4, put a dot. And then 1, 1, put a dot. There's my line, or pretend it's my line. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick negative 1, 0, 1 for this time. Put in the bottom equation. So I say y equals 3 times negative 1 is negative 3 minus 2, so I get negative 5. Plug in 0, I get negative 2. I plug in 1. I get y equals 3 times 1 minus 2, so I get 1. Look, I already know the answer is 1, 1 because they cross. They're both on the XY chart, but I'm going to graph it anyhow. So 0, negative 2, there's 1, 1, and then negative 1 down to negative 5. And make my line. And they cross at 1, 1. So 1, 1 is the solution. And that's it for 22. Once again, you got to have two lines that make an X marks the spot.